What's going on, guys? And Happy New Year! With this video now going out, it is now the first week of 2022, and with that being the case, I thought I would let you know my top 10 favourite interviews I did in 2021. So basically what I'm going to do is tell you why I like that interview, how it came about, and just bits like that really. Maybe there'll be some clips of those interviews, but if not, they're all in the description below, and check them out. So number 10 is with Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling. I think the reason this interview means so much to me is the fact that it just happened so spontaneously. I just happened to put up a list of people that I wanted to interview. They were like dreams in my mind at this time, because I was only interviewing my friends. They were never going to happen. So, and then 10, 20 minutes later, Adam sent me a DM just being like, "I'll come on. I'll even help you set up the Zoom." As I know, at that time, I didn't know how to do Zoom calls myself. So, and what was so cool about that interview was I was able to talk to him about all the stuff that I'd always wanted to talk to him about, like how he got into what culture, how he got into wrestling, what he wants to do with Cultaholic in the future, how Cultaholic came about, what it's like bringing new presenters on, etc. I think the reason I rank this interview so low, though, is because if you watch the first 10 minutes, I'm an utter fanboy. And I look back on it as a cool thing because I got to talk to one of my heroes in Adam Pacitti. But if I could go back and do it again, there's definitely a lot I would improve on. Number 9 is my interview with Flash Kirby of Flash and Jax, the comedy duo. At time of recording, this interview aired this week. And this interview came about when I'd seen Flash and Jax at a comedy show when I went away with some friends, and ended up following them on social media and continuing to follow their work, etc. And then, again, similar to the Adam story, they saw my work and was like, "If you ever want to do an interview," or this was Flash at the time, was like, "I'd be down." So that was really cool. So that was really cool to have that come about. And it was really cool to interview someone that I'd been a fan of but wasn't a fan of for as long. So finding out new things at the time was really cool, and learning how comedians put stuff on stage and learning how comedians can still be funny in a world that it's hard to be funny sometimes was really cool. And basically, but again, the reason I rank this interview so low is because, once again, it was an early interview, and if I could go back and do it again, there's a lot I would improve on. Number 8 is my first interview with Anthony from the Anthony podcast and the Anthony YouTube channel. For those of you that don't know, myself and Anthony have become, I guess, YouTube friends through the past year since I started my channel. It started off with me complimenting on him on his interview with Ross Twaddell from Cultaholic, and then he would compliment me on some of my wrestling reviews, etc. And eventually it just came to the point where, once again, we referenced that list of dream interviews, and him basically saying, "If you want to come on, I'll come on. If you want me to come on, I'll come on," sort of thing. And it was very cool to hear that he but he feels like he has similar problems to me in terms of struggling to get guests and having imposter syndrome. And it was cool for myself to learn that I'm not alone in that, having imposter syndrome and struggling with, am I good enough? Because I still don't think I'm good, guys. All the stuff that I do has been pure luck, and I will always reference how lucky I am. And what has been cool, as you guys will see in a couple of weeks at time of this video airing, is I was able to do a part 2 with Anthony, and we talked about his wrestling fandom and how he became a wrestling fan and stuff like that. So I did get the chance to redo that and not to basically do a better interview with him. And I found that really cool. Number 7 is my interview. Number 6. Oh, number 7 is my interview with my stepsister Jade, where we talked about what being a teacher was like in lockdown and beyond. I really enjoyed this interview because, again, one thing I will say, back when I was a smaller channel and interviewing my friends, I never expected anyone to want to come on because they'd never been in the public eye before or never been on camera, most of the people that I was interviewing. So, and then once again, Jade reached out to me and said, if you ever want to do an interview with me about being a teacher, I'd be 100% down for that. So that was cool, and I found it cool how she was so open about teachers don't get enough credit in terms of, and I think a lot of people learned that in homeschool, having to homeschool their kids this year, in the last couple of years, because and the fact that we talked about how you deal with troubled kids, like you don't just punish them, you try and help them, and the way that you deal with one kid might be different from the way you deal with another, and having to deal with staff, and there's a lot of red tape when it comes to being a teacher now, and what lessons were easier to teach in COVID, what lessons were harder, etc. I just found that one a lot of fun, really. Number 6 is my interview with Stephen Larson from Going In Raw. I said this during the interview, but this was a massive bucket list interview for me. I've been a fan of Stephen Larson since I got back into wrestling, and it was fun to basically shoot the shit with them for an hour. And the reason this interview will mean so much to me again is because literally I just sent Larson a birthday message on Twitter, and he was like, "We've seen your work, we'd love to come on one time." I was like, okay, cool, like let's do it. And the fact it was my first time doing an interview via Zoom with 2 people, so I felt like that helped me to learn a lot. And I loved the fact that, similar to the Adam one, I got to ask them a lot of questions that as a fan I've always wanted to ask them, and just bits like that, really. And it was just fun to know that it was just fun to tick one off the bucket list, essentially, guys. Number 5 is my interview with Ross Twaddell from Cultaholic. I feel like these are all similar stories, but once again, I feel like doing that interview with Adam gave me a lot of credibility with the Cultaholic crew, and they were like, "Oh, he's interviewed Adam. Adam speaks very highly of him." So getting Ross to come on was very easy. I just literally sent him an email, and he was like, "Yeah, definitely." And then it was fun to go all the way back to when he started watching wrestling, because this was the first interview that I felt like I was comfortable. Like, it took me a while to become comfortable, and I now have a format for my wrestling interviews, so it was fun to go back from when he started watching wrestling to his break, to how he got back into it, to what culture, to Cultaholic, and then what he wants to do for the future. Basically talk about his entire wrestling timeline, and it was fun to basically, once again, get to talk to someone I've looked up to for quite a long time. Number 4 was my interview with my friends Emma and Tom about what raising a child was like in 2020, in lockdown in 2020. So yeah, this interview came about because, once again, I had said to friends and family that I would love to speak to someone that either had a baby during lockdown or was raising a baby. Couldn't find anyone that had a baby that was comfortable, but I found someone that was obviously I spoke to my friends Emma and Tom, who are like my best friends in the world, and they were like, yeah, we'll come on. And it was fun to talk about their timeline of Emma going into labour, but then having to have a C-section, which she mentioned in the interview, so I don't feel like I'm speaking out of turn. So Tom was taking on a lot for the baby in the first couple of weeks, and etc. So it was fun to basically discover the timeline, and it was nice to see Tom open up, who doesn't open up a lot sometimes, about the struggle being real and about the fact that he did struggle. He admits that. And maybe he also thinks that people overlook what the dad does sometimes, and even Emma agreed with him on this, which I thought was very sweet. And it was the fact that they were both like, dads deserve more credit, and just stuff like that, really. And I really enjoyed that conversation. And the way that we wrapped up that conversation with me being quite cheesy, and then me saying I'm very proud of them, was like very weird, but also very like, oh, that was nice. Number 3 was my interview with the lady that runs Care Direct, which is the care company that works for me, Charmaine. And in this interview, we talked about what running a care company was like during lockdown. And basically, again, this interview came about because my first interview with my former carer, Drew, was doing really well. And I was like, I want to try and do more interviews. And then, thankfully, or not thankfully, but like, one day, my carer that I would normally have was on annual leave because they'd gone on holiday, and Charmaine was covering. So I said, you know what? I said to myself, that would be so cool to sit down with her for an interview. I didn't think she'd say yes. So it was cool to speak with her about how, starting off with when did she think COVID was a big deal and stuff like that. How did she pivot when she realised the country is going to go into lockdown? How did she wonder, like, did she think that the care industry would survive? And then a lot, like, it was cool to basically also pick her brain about how she, when talking to clients about what they want, how does she put what they want together, and how does she put a client and a service user together, and when looking for, a PA and a service user together, and how does she put, and when looking for PAs, what does she look for? And then it was also cool to hear about what she wants now, like, with there being, I don't know how to phrase this, but like what she wants to do with the future of caring and where she sees the future of caring going. So that was very cool, to be honest, guys. And that is an interview that will stay with me forever. And number 2 is my interview with Brian Zane from Wrestling with Regret. The reason this interview means so much to me is because Brian says himself that he doesn't do a lot of interviews. So to have him say, yeah, I'll come on, that was fun. But also the fact that it also helped me learn a lot, because he said in that interview, or he said before that interview, that look, I literally only have half an hour to do an interview. So it was like, I had to learn how to concise and scale down everything. And I felt like because of that, that is one of my better interviews, because like, I'm not trying to fill an hour, which, as you guys know, which is what I like my interviews to go, and just bits like that, really. And I really enjoy the fact that we talked about everything from how Wrestling with Regret started to like it becoming more full-time, and then eventually we ended on talking about his business relationship with Ring of Honor. And I still feel like that, as he says in that interview, we were able to get a lot of information in 30 minutes. And yeah, that was just... And once again, it came about because I was able to show him my work, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. And number 1 is my interview with my carer Danny about what starting a job in the care industry was like in 2020. Overall, guys, I feel like this is my favourite because I felt like I had the best chemistry with Danny at the time. She was very open about why she wanted to be in the care industry, why the care industry means so much to her, and why the job that she's doing means so much to her, and just bits like that, really, guys. I'm hoping that there'll be some clips to show you guys, because I feel like I've not done these interviews justice. But if there's not, they'll all be in the link in the description below. So anyway, guys, obviously I want to end this video by saying thank you for all the love and support in 2021. I can't wait to show you guys what I've got planned for 2022. And I'm really excited for the future of my channel. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. Bye. Bye.